Hi, I'm Miss Meahl, and today I'm going to be reading Keep On, the story of Matthew Henson, co-discoverer of the North Pole. It's written by Deborah Hopkinson and illustrated by Stephen Alcorn. The inside of the front cover is written by Matthew Henson himself. It says, "The black darkness of the sky, the stars twinkling above, and hour after hour going by with no sunlight. Every now and then a moon when storms do not come, and always the cold getting colder and colder." Here's the beautiful title page. Keep On, the story of Matthew Henson, co-discoverer of the North Pole, written by Deborah Hopkinson and illustrated by Stephen Alcorn. Matthew Henson was born in a Maryland cabin at a time when boys dreamed of finding glory, planting flags at the ends of the earth, making the unknown known, and recording their names into history books. Young Matt had that same hunger to explore, but most folks would have laughed at his dreams. For Matt was born in 1866, just after the Civil War, a time when poor Black boys like him had few chances to roam the next county, to say nothing of another country, the seven seas, or the top of the world. By the time he was 13, Matt was alone. He set out to make his way in the world, trudging the long road from Washington, D.C. to the harbor of Baltimore. What a bustling place it was. Gulls screeched, men shouted and rushed about, loading and unloading ships of every size. And Matt stood alone, keen as an Arctic fox, eager to pounce on any chance he could find. Matt spied the Katie Hines, a three-masted vessel so sharp and bright, she seemed like a star gliding on water. And when he spotted her proud white-haired captain, Matt begged for a chance to go to sea. It was breaking the rules to let a boy under 15 sail, but that old sea dog took a liking to him, and Matthew Alexander Henson became his cabin boy. Matt writes, "I shipped as cabin boy on board a vessel bound for China. After my first voyage, I became an able-bodied seaman sailing to China, Japan, North Africa, Spain, France, and through the Black Sea to southern Russia." For the next 5 years, Matt's school was the world, his classroom, the boat. Captain Childs taught him history and mathematics, and soon Matt could navigate by the stars, tie sailors' knots, and fix or build most anything. After Captain Childs died, Matt left the sea, unsure of his course. He was working in a store in Washington, D.C., when a naval engineer named Robert E. Peary came looking for a hat and found an assistant besides. Matt proved so able that Peary asked him to join his next expedition to Greenland. Soon, Matt realized Peary's heart was set on one goal: to be the first to stand at the top of the world. But the pole was not an easy prize, and Peary and Matt had much to learn about the harsh, cold North. Matt studied with new teachers now, the Inuit. Of all the explorers who entered their world, Matt was their favorite. They gave him the nickname Mari Paluk, Matthew, the kind one. Matthew writes, "I have come to love these people. I know every man, woman, and child in their tribe. They are my friends, and they regard me as theirs." Matt took the time to listen, to learn their language, and to make friends. He studied how to build and drive a dog sledge and how to dress and hunt in order to survive. Hardworking, skilled, and kind, Matt Henson earned the respect of all. He writes, 8 days out and not a shot. not a sight of a game, nothing. The night is coming quickly, the long months of darkness, of quiet and cold, that, in spite of my years of experience, I can never get used to. Through the years of struggle and heartbreak, the explorers faced furious storms, the shifting ice, and always, always the unrelenting, desperate cold. On Peary's 1906 expedition, he and Matt set a record, reaching farther north than anyone ever had before. But storms forced them back, the top of the world still out of reach, nearly 200 miles away. Matt writes, "The wind would find the tiniest opening in our clothing and pierce us with the force of driving needles. Our hoods froze to our growing beards, and when we halted, we had to break away the ice that had been formed." Peary was determined to make one final try. And so, on July 6th, 1908, Peary's team of explorers set sail again on the Roosevelt, a ship so strong it could push through the Arctic ice. They spent the winter locked in the frozen sea, readying sledges, supplies, food, stoves, and more than 200 dogs. They hauled everything by dog sledge to the northernmost tip of Ellesmere Island. From this base camp, they would launch Peary's last attempt for the pole. He writes, "The dogs were double fed, and we put a good meal inside ourselves before turning in on the night of February 28th, 1909. The next morning was to be our launching, and we went to sleep full of the thought of what was before us." On March 1st, 1909, Peary and Henson's team set out across the frozen polar sea over endless ridges of sharp drifting ice, aiming for one point on the ice at the top of the world, 413 miles away. Peary's plan used support teams of men and dogs to break the trail, build igloos, and haul and cache supplies, inching the assault forward day by day. But there were only enough supplies for one small team to make the fast and final dash of 5 grueling marches, 133 miles more. He writes, "Day and night were the same. My thoughts were on the going and getting forward and on nothing else. Traveling was slow and the dogs became demons, at one time sullen and stubborn, then wildly excited and savage." By April 1st, Peary had sent everyone back except Matt and 4 Inuit men, Uta, Siglu, Ukwia, and Ingagwa. For Peary could not get along without Matt Henson, experienced, resourceful, and brave. Matt was better than anyone else at driving the dogs, fixing stoves and sledges, breaking and finding the trail, urging their Inuit companions on. Without Matt Henson, there would be no pole. Matt writes, "Without the Eskimo dog, the story of the North Pole would remain untold, for human ingenuity has not yet devised any other means to overcome the obstacles of cold, storm, and ice that nature has placed in the way." On April 3rd, as they moved across the ice, Matt slipped and fell through. Cold, killing water closed over his head. Matt could not grasp the edge of the ice with his thick gloves. He writes, "We were crossing a lane of moving ice. The block of ice I was using as a support slipped from underneath my feet, and before I knew it, the sledge was out of my grasp, and I was floundering in the water of the lead." Then, in a flash, strong Utah was there. He grabbed Matt and pulled him out as if he were picking up a puppy by the scruff of its neck. He tore off Matt's sealskin boots, beat the water from his bearskin trousers, saved the sledge and Mari Paluk's life. And then they simply kept on. He writes, "From now on, it was keep on going and keep on. And we kept on, sometimes in the face of storms of wind and snow that it is impossible for you to imagine. On April 6th, 1909, Peary planted a flag on a spot on the ice, the pole at last, or as close to it as they could figure. After 18 years, thousands of miles, the thin, tattered flag they always carried looked as ragged and as worn as Peary and Matt. For a few minutes, it hung limp and lifeless in the dead calm of the haze, and then a slight breeze, increasing in strength, caused the folds to straighten out, and soon it was rippling out in sparkling color. 3 hearty cheers rang out on the still frosty air, our dumb dogs looking on in puzzled surprise. But now, at last, these brave explorers could watch it fly from the top of the world. And that was Keep On, the story of Matthew Henson, co-discoverer of the North Pole, written by Deborah Hopkinson.